disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO classified. UFO classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome. Good evening, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here live this Friday, and I have to tell you about my adventures to Cedar City last week. I was speaking at the Utah UFO Festival, and the night, a week ago tonight actually, there was a huge storm that blew through the area, and we were outside the screen that we were going to be using to project my presentation and Greg Bishop's presentation blew over, and the most amazing lightning storm and rainbow, all of these beautiful things happened, but it was, needless to say, a harrowing experience for those of us who were presenting. I ended up doing that, and I drove home the fact that here in Utah, we have a very important history, and our history with regard to UFO research is really, truly being stolen right out from underneath us, and we don't have access to files that we should. I drove home that fact and hopefully shined a light on some corrupt practices and instilled a sense of the urgency to really get a hold of people's work so we can move forward, specifically in my home state and specifically in the United States, because we are in a really critical time period right now, and older researchers are passing away. Their work is ending up either in the trash or at universities that makes it hard for researchers to find, or overseas in archives that we might not have access to. So we've got some work to do. We're going to talk about that tonight, as well as my trip to visit two of my friends. And I wish that Barry Greenwood would have been there, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I want to throw something out to you. As I've mentioned, I believe that right now history has the potential with regard to this subject to disappear. And I truly believe right now, because we are seeing all of this data going into specific holes where the public isn't gaining access to it, that it is very easy for the powers that be to step in and rewrite the history of this subject. And to me, that is gravely concerning. And I really encourage each and every one of you to be mindful of this, and especially mindful when you're turning to social media and looking at some of these people who hide behind fake profiles and try to steer the narrative and gather data. Like I said, this is concerning. I talk about this on every show because the more and more I research, the more and more I become concerned that this is very real and we need to get a handle on it quickly. I am here tonight with my three favorite people in the world. I am here with Jan Aldrich, hopefully, who will be joining us. If he hasn't, we've been having technical difficulties. Barry Greenwood, who is my mentor. Barry Greenwood was working for the U.S. Postal Service. He did that for 33 years. He's pursued UFOs since '64. He was Section State Director for Massachusetts MUFON and specializes in researching government documents. He co-authored the book Clear Intent, which I talk about all the time, and also edited the Just Cause Citizens Against UFOs Secrecy newsletter from '84 to '98. He is the world's foremost archivist, and we would not be able to preserve this history if it was not for Barry Greenwood. He is teaching me so much, and I'm grateful to be friends with him. I am also joined by my friend Gordon, who has trusted me with his wonderful archives. He is author of many incredible books, three of which are sitting here: Mysteries of the Skies, UFOs in Perspective, a wonderful book that you need to get. Also, Strange Effects from UFOs, a NICAP special report with Director Major Donald Kehoe and Gordon. And then Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, the UFO Researcher's Odyssey. Gordon and I are working on a book, and I just got Jan and I and Tom Tulane a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, went to visit Gordon in Santa Clarita and looked at his beautiful files, and it was an absolute trip. It was such an adventure. So, all right, boys, how are we doing tonight? Are you staying out of trouble?
Well,
try not to, Erica. So what do you think, Barry? Do you think we should give 3 big cheers for the loveliest, sexiest lady on the radio airwaves?
Well, I just want to say something before that. I heard your station's disclaimer, and I'll try very hard to be truthful.
Well,
Good.
you know what? You're pretty good that way. And I have to say, you're one of the few people in this subject that actually digs for the truth and is able to see through a lot of stuff. And I appreciate that about you. You've taught me so much.
Well, it's a lot of fun doing it, and I don't intend to slow down anytime soon.
Well, that's good, because you've still got a lot more you're
Barry.
teaching me. And so I want to say, Barry, I really, really wish that you could have been out in L.A. with us, because it was, well, I mean, we had a grand old time. Yeah, that would have been wonderful. And you really are, you're the person, Barry, who introduced me to Gordon and who really allowed me to have the honor of getting the paper archives. And that is, for me, it is, like I said, it's an honor. It is a treat to be able to show these archives and the work of Gordon Lohr to the world, and especially because Gordon worked with NICAP at a very pivotal time in the UFO subject. So thank you, Barry.
Yes, anytime. I'm glad to be of service that way. And also, I would like to have been out there to pour through Gordon's records and sit down and speak with him for extended periods of time, but being retired, the budget doesn't allow it, so I have to save for, say, maybe one trip a year, and one like that is coming up soon.
Very good, Barry. Very good.
And so, Barry, where are you going to go? Can you tell us?
Well, we have a plan to go to the Center for UFO Studies again. The last 2 summers, I've gone out there, first time 2 weeks and the second time 3 weeks, to essentially scan as much as I can of a very, very large collection of UFO data dating back to the, 1800s and earlier. I managed to do somewhere in the area of 50,000 pages over the last 2 years.
Whoa.
And I think it included about 800 or so case files in monthly folders containing scads of reports. And this time it's going to be another 2-week trip, and we're going to try to plow into the things we missed the previous time. So promises to be a very intense time. It's dirty hands and headaches staring at pages, but it's all worth it to me.
Well, and people don't understand how hard it is to actually do what you do. And I got a good taste of it when I went to the University of Utah Special Archives to go through Dr. Frank Salisbury's work. And that was, it is not for the faint of heart. But I hope that more people can understand the importance of doing what you do, because we need people to get out there and do this, not spend all their money on UFO conferences and stupid newsletters and doing all of these things. It's like invest your money in something that is going to really, truly have a lasting and important impact on the subject.
Yeah, I think one thing the public doesn't understand is that not everything is on the Internet. There's a great deal of history that hasn't been scanned or made available, and And something must be done about that before any of that disappears, and that's why we have the research and scanning projects for individuals' files.
Absolutely. Erica, why don't you give us a little background about Dr. Salisbury?
Dr. Salisbury was a botanist here in Utah, and he also worked for NASA and was around back in the 60s and 70s, and wrote the Utah UFO Display, one of the most important, the most important book on UFOs in Utah. And he took cases from Junior Hicks, who lives up in the Uinta Basin, who'd been collecting reports from the 60s on really important and profound sightings. And he wrote a book about that from a scientist's perspective, which was pretty groundbreaking. And it highlighted the importance of this particular area, which is home to Skinwalker Ranch, as most people know.
What's the name of that book, Erica?
The Utah UFO Display.
Gotcha. All right.
I just love it when you interview me, Gordon. We talked about this, didn't we?
Thank you. I'll turn the tables in a very nice way on you anytime.
I know. I love that. I love that. We've talked about that before, and just having a show where we do that. That's really fun, and thank you for...
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Have Barry on and Jan if he wants, and whoever.
And you'll be the
ringmaster.
ringmaster.
To change the name of the show to Lore Unclassified.
Oh,
Lore Unclassified. There you go. All right. Just for that one show, though, we don't want to lose UFO Classified. That's for sure.
You know what? We won't. And honestly, thanks to all the people that support the show. I really feel that we absolutely won't. The show isn't going anywhere. It's too important. And really and truly, it is the only show out there, aside from maybe Greg Bishop's show, that actually promotes truth and integrity in the subject. I mean, I have to just kind of go off on a little tangent here. I think this is important, but I just learned last night of a UFO conference that was held where it was actually more of a political rally, and a disturbing one at that. And I really want to stress the importance of not turning towards some of these events or people in the field now that have a spotlight on YouTube or a platform. It's really an interesting time. And I want to, while I'm talking about this, ask both of you what you think about using UFOs as kind of a little hook for a political agenda. Have you seen that in either of your careers with regard to UFOs?
Well, I've seen it in the past at various conferences I've been to. It's to me, it's apples and oranges. The research into UFOs is more of a scientific endeavor, and you're trying to dig down, get truth about odd things that people see in the sky. How that weaves into politics is kind of a convoluted road. I suppose, in a sense, it's a way to perhaps raise money for whatever political agenda is out there by giving the public a scientific mystery to ponder over and stump for whatever party is out there. So it has that use, but beyond that, I just separate the two entirely for myself. I don't want them together.
Yeah, very good, Barry. I subscribe to that.
Right, and Jan, now we've got Jan Aldrich on the phone. Jan, what do you think about the mixture of?
Oh well, the UFO community is so small. I can't see them affecting anything. If you remember, Amalgamated Flying Saucer Society, Green ran for president. He got, I don't know, just so few votes, and Stephen Bissett has run for Congress, and that wasn't too successful either. So I see this as something really important. It's nice when during the NICAP days that you had a lot of senators and congressmen that were willing to step forward and support NICAP, at least verbally. But we don't have that kind of thing now, and I don't see any big threat to the Republic because a few ufologists seem to think that this is a political avenue. It's not.
I think it is.
Yeah, amen to that.
Well,
I
it
think
shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think J. Edward Roush, who honchoed the 1968 congressional hearings, he was a member of NICAP, and he really did a great job in bringing that forward. But the thing is, these things come and go. One person brings one forward, then there's a little interest, and it slides back again. So we need to keep that going.
So I have to say that because of the fact that I get to hear what's going on current time, in ufology, which is kind of a subject that I know, Barry, you don't have an interest for because you're doing the hard work. And that's good. It's delusional.
We have a lot of old information to deal with. I can't squeeze every time frame into the time I have available, so I concentrate on older records.
Right, and that's great. But I think that for me, as somebody who is watching this situation and monitoring the sentiment of the community, as small as it may be, it is a very radical group of people who have ideas that are, as historically, sometimes they can be a little unhinged, and that can be something that is problematic. And I'm just going to be quiet after that. But I do want to say that when I am looking through my archive, which I have thanks to all of you, since 1947, if you look at different publications, periodicals, and you thumb through them, there are different religious organizations that are running ads, and there are also different political groups that are involved in this. So how do we not understand the importance of the fact that these groups have been involved in perhaps manipulating the subject since the late 40s?
Well, the glorification of the Nazis is very troubling to me. And the Nazi UFO myth.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it's troubling. I mean, these people were beyond savage, and
oh God, yeah,
and they did not have. They were not supermen and had giant intellects. In fact, they called physics a Jewish science. So, mostly the German scientists that were brought over with von Braun were more technicians type people. I mean, they had the theoretical things orbit and all that, but they were not great theoreticians. General Foote said that the Nazis or the Germans were about 10 years ahead of us on the drawing board. They just, if they had had more resources to put ahead of us, and Hitler did a lot of stupid things for the ME-262. So he himself held things back, which is exactly a great thing. It's a which was a scientist in the GRID were just as competent as any scientist at the time, but then in the gulags, had to let them out. Had they had unfettered access to their to tests and stuff, we might have been in a far worse. All I can say is, thank God that the other side was incompetent.
Right, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really great point, Jan. I mean, there is a glorification of the Nazi myth that we are seeing now, and that has been concerning to me on several occasions and several speaking engagements that I have had. But I want to thank all three of you who are my heroes and I look up to. I really respect your work. You've helped me, and all three of you have mentored me, and I really appreciate that. I am here with Jan Aldrich, who has Project 1947. You need to check it out. I post links to his site all the time, along with Barry Greenwood in the Greenwood Archives, and Gordon Lohr, who we're going to really talk about more, and you can get his book Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth on Amazon. So do that, and we're going to take a break. We will be back in a moment.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code Radio10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Are you ready to go?
Turn the radio up. It's showtime! Hey!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Bring this up.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Your base is
so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here live on KCOR with the best station owner and producer, Tina Marie. I adore you, and I want to just say, in the past week, Tina has lost a very important member of her family, and I want to, her furry friend, her beautiful dog, only 7 years old, and I want to just give her my love and her son and say I know how hard that is, and I'm here and thinking of you and your son, and I know it's a tough thing. I spent last weekend at the Utah UFO Festival, and that was so important for me to be able to get out and do some work with my community, because there were so many people there that had stories that came up to me to share things. I'm still getting phone calls from people who have not reported their sightings before, and they're getting them to me, and I have now formed an even bigger group here in Utah, and we will be doing lectures. I will have lectures at my archive where this is open to the public and where I get people in there from all walks of life that talk about this, that I can educate about this subject. And I could not have done that without the help of Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich, who have contributed a great deal to my beautiful archive, and Gordon Lohr, my friend, who is co-authoring a book with me at the moment. He is graciously trusted me with his research, and I will be adding that to my archive in the hopes to make sure we're preserving history and that we are doing the right thing, getting information out to the public. This is crucial. So welcome back, my friends. I love you guys and I appreciate you. And Jan, and Gordon, I had so much fun going out to Santa Clarita to hang out with you and learn from you. When we were leaving for break, we were talking about Hitler and the glorification of the Nazis and UFOs and also Werner von Braun. And this is important, and people need to look at this and hopefully steer away from it. It is troubling. But Jan, continue with your statement about this, and then we'll ask Gordon about meeting Werner von Braun.
Well, during the break, we said something. The military looked upon these people during Project Paperclip, which brought them over here, as the spoils of Egypt, if you get the biblical reference. In other words, we were going to prevent the Russians from getting their knowledge and experience, and we were going to use their experience to build on our projects. It was not some kind of conspiracy to bring Nazis into the United States. It was an attempt to use their knowledge, and some that misbehaved when they got here were sent right back. So I have mixed feelings about that, but that's the time. It's another time, and maybe some of them should have been strung up, but we had a better use for them, I think.
Absolutely. And that story in and of itself is absolutely fascinating. But Gordon, you were talking about meeting Werner von Braun. And so tell us about that. And give us a little background about who he was, so our listeners who are younger can understand.
He was the Nazi at Peenemünde, where he developed the V1 and 2 rockets. And what I could do, if you want to take a few minutes, is read you a little bit about from my book Connections about how I met him and so on. Let's see. I was invited to the world premiere of his movie based on his life called I Aim at the Stars, and it was in Washington D.C. in 1960. And the First Lady, Mamie Eisenhower, was there. I got to meet her. Dwight Eisenhower, the president, was supposed to be there, but he had to cancel at the last minute because something else came up. Also, the director of the Manhattan Project was there as well. I got to meet him, and so I saw him after we shook hands. I took him aside for a little bit and asked him what he thought about UFOs, because back then I was very interested in it, of course. And I'd read a couple of Major Kehoe's books, and I asked him what he thought about UFOs, and he told me that he had no doubt that they existed and there was scientific proof for their existence, but he couldn't say anything about it publicly. So that was pretty much it. But it was a good movie, but I've always had second thoughts about it in the sense here we went to praise a man who was really responsible for killing a lot of people during World War II. Yet, like we did with so many of the Nazi scientists, we brought them over here and had them lead up our space exploration program.
And that is interesting, and it's like I've mentioned earlier, it is concerning just to go to different conferences and then see people that are really honing in on that. And I'm not quite sure what purposes that is, because I think that we should be trying to separate research and history from all of this, but we're not, and that's the biggest concern for me with regard to the UFO community. So we'll see where that plays out.
I had a question for
Good
Gordon
for you
about
for saying
von
that.
Braun.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. What'd you say, Barry?
No, I was just going to say regarding von Braun, when he told you that he knew of scientific evidence for UFOs, what do you think he meant by that?
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I misspoke. He didn't say that he knew of scientific evidence, but that he had heard that there was scientific evidence. So I don't know whether he heard it through maybe reading one of Kehoe's books or another scientist that he knew, or group of scientists that he knew. So.
One thing to talk about here is when the German scientists were trying to make their way west to surrender to the Americans, they spotted a UFO.
Oh, they did. All right, I didn't know that.
They did, and they when McDonald went and talked to them, they mentioned that to him. So, also, because of
did McDonald speak with von Braun himself?
No, he did not.
Okay.
And let's I want to just talk about McDonald, because some people that are listening do not know who he is, which is sad. But if you could just give us a little bit of information about him, that would be wonderful.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could do that. Jim McDonald and I and Richard Hall were sort of a threesome. We really were very best friends, and we met with McDonald at our home in Bethesda, Maryland, many times. And indeed, just a couple of weeks before he passed away, he was at our home, and he had been working on his own book about UFOs. And I think it's too bad that never came to being, because it was never published. It was somehow lost. And when Ann Druffel went to do research on her excellent book about his life called Firestorm, Dr. James E. McDonald's Fight for UFO Science, they searched high and low but couldn't find any evidence of the manuscript that McDonald had, and so that I think was a tremendous loss, because McDonald told us that he was being trailed. He didn't know whether it was by the Secret Service or the FBI or what,
right,
or the CIA, and that he'd been trailed by black vans without license plates on the back of through the streets of Phoenix where he lived.
And that's interesting, and I will get into that because I want to talk a little bit about that later on the show. But with regard to James McDonald, I mean, he was one of the most important figures in the subject, and he risked a great deal and sacrificed a lot to look into this subject. So, Jan, continue with what you were saying, and I'm sorry to cut you off midstream. I just wanted to get some background on him.
Right. During the way out to Gordon's, we stopped and talked to some important UFO personalities. Could we spend a little time on them?
Absolutely, I think.
Absolutely, that would be good. And in fact, I think leading up to our journey to LA, or to visit Gordon, that's really interesting, because you were at Michael Sword's, who has one of the world's best archives, and you got to visit. And I had Rob Zwitek on my show a couple weeks ago, and he also talked about that visit, because you both were together there. So tell us about your adventures leading up to Gordon's.
Well, Tom Tulene has what's called the Signed Oral History Project, in which we do oral histories with various witnesses, military people, scientists, pilots. It's been quite interesting. Tom has done about 200 interviews, and I've helped him on maybe 80 or 90 of them.
And I'm proud to be number 200.
Yeah. He has done some of that 200 was done before I ever met him, so maybe 90 is too many. But I met with Tom, and he gave me a paper that he had written with Jim Klotz, which was about UFO activity in North Dakota, and by a NICAP subcommittee chairman named Flickinger. And so I scanned that, Then we went on and met with Jerry Clark and interviewed him. He is currently, he just finished the third update of his encyclopedia, and this one I think is it has a number of articles that I did pay for another copy because they were really interesting. We had in the encyclopedia, he had a Brazilian researcher, Luis Techetti, who wrote a large number of articles in there. One was on Brazilian pilot sightings, and one is, they call it the official day of UFOs, which was the 1986, a large, a long chase by Brazilian Air Force trying to determine what was going on in their skies. And of course the Project Plate, which is one of the AAITP papers that was written concerning the physical effects in Brazil during that time. So now we have a Brazilian, the Brazilian best information that could be gathered, building on Bob Pratt's book. We have the best information in English now with Jerry's encyclopedia. Brad Sparks wrote about a number of important UFO incidents. So,
and I think that these are, and I want to just interject here because I think that these are names, Brad Sparks, these are people that most people that are coming into this subject don't have any idea who they are. And they have made considerable contributions, and I would hope that we could remember them. But I would encourage my listeners to go out and check out Brad Sparks and his work and different people that we're talking about tonight.
Erica, could I interject something here about Jerome Clark?
Yes.
All right. He just sent me a couple of months ago an excellent article he did, which was published in the Fortean Times, called Mr. Wilson and the Aeronauts of 1897. Now, Jerry, is the first two chapters of my book, Mysteries of the Skies, it concerns the so-called airships that were seen from California to West Virginia back in 1896 and 97. And, of course, Clark was perhaps most well-known for his multi-volume UFO encyclopedia that was published. Several editions came out on it between about 1990 and 1998 or 2000. And he's done a remarkable job in revising that part of UFO history. Of course, my first book, Mysteries of the Skies, was the first ever published about UFOs going back before the Kenneth Arnold sighting of June 1947.
Yes, Gordon, you want to mention something that was found in your archives regarding airships?
Clue me in. There was aged memory. It doesn't.
Some book that was being done that isn't finished yet.
Perhaps written by you, Gordon.
Your own manuscript, Gordon.
That's all right. Sometimes I forget my own name, in my 84th year of life. So, what's your name, by the way? Just kidding.
Well, we've got a lot going on here, so it's hard to.
That's right. I did do an airship book. Actually, it was submitted to Simon & Schuster back in 1976, I believe it was, and they thought it was very good, but they needed 9 members of their editorial board to approve it. If even one disapproved, it would not be published. One disapproved, it wasn't published, and I got discouraged and put it on the back burner to this day. But I'm hoping to revise it before I shuffle off this mortal coil, as Shakespeare would say.
Yeah, Gordon's talking about a UFO history book that never appeared. It's been written for years and years.
And it's about the airship sighting reports of 1896 and 97 in this country. I even got firsthand encouragement from the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. when I was doing research. The curator of the museum at the time, the old museum building, not the new one, but the old museum building, and he handed me a whole bunch of photos of the old airships and gave me a lot of good information. I'm still hoping that maybe someday that it will be published. So if any of you guys can help me out in that, I'd sure appreciate it.
Well, I think that's definitely the plan, and I think we are all working on that and making sure that we're preserving your history and honoring all the work that you've done. So that's what we're doing.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, lovely lady. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, and I want to just say that I feel the same way about Barry and Jan, both of you, because you have contributed so much and have been very, very kind to me, to teach me things and to really help me with my love of preserving history. And so I appreciate all of you.
Well, we want you to be the Annie Oakley of ufology.
There you go. The straight shooter.
Well, yeah. I'm kind of a bad shot, but that's okay. I'll work on that. But but I appreciate your support because it is, being a woman, being in this subject, there is that kind of goes against you, but also, as all three of you know, when you have to deal with the world of ufology, or you have to deal with some of the criticisms that you get, you tend to disengage and then go off and do your own work, which is important. And then when there's a new person that comes into it, it takes a long time for you to be able to trust or to allow that person in your world, and so that's been a process for me, and I appreciate the fact that you've trusted me enough to do that.
I've never understood why there aren't more women in the subject.
I know, me too. Amen to that. And women.
More than half the population, and it seems to be terribly underrepresented in this subject.
And so many other subjects right down the line, exactly.
I think definitely, though, in this subject more so than a lot of things. I mean, it's always amazing to me when I go to conferences and I look at the speakers and then also look at the crowd. I mean, it is just, it's amazing to see it. This subject is really dominated by white males from 60 to 75 years old.
Absolutely. Well, Erica, as far as I'm concerned, you're the queen of this subject, I'll tell you. I've never known anybody that's male or female that knows as much as you do, with a possible exception of your two guests, me excluded.
Well, you know what? I will tell you, I love this subject, and I feel honored to be able to learn about it. And there are so many things I don't know, and I just every day I want to go down a different hole, a rabbit hole, and look at anomalous light phenomena, or look at the interactions with the CIA and intelligence. I mean, there's so much to know. And I don't know, but we'll figure it out together. And I appreciate you. I'm Erica Lukes here with my three friends, Barry Greenwood, Gordon Lohr, and Jan Aldrich. We are going to take our bigger break, so stick around. And if you have time, go to Amazon and get Gordon's book, Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, and definitely.
Bless you.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely get a copy of Strange Effects from UFOs, which was a NICAP special report. That is one that is a collector's item. We will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I'm Erica Lukes. I was happy to be here and to get into my chat room and see my friends, RJ, Phil, Northern UFOs, Dave, Bruce. All of you mean the world to me. Amy, it is. You are the reason that I'm here, and I am just shocked to see how many people reach out to me from all over the world and report sightings and want to share information and feel empowered, and they turn to ufology and they quickly realize that that is a cesspool of delusional thinking and people who are strictly out for making money. And that is unfortunate because this subject is one that deserves to be studied and deserves to be preserved. Right now, as I have stated numerous times in lectures and on shows, we are at a point where history is disappearing, and we could very well see this subject be rewritten. We've got a very powerful presence on TV now where we're trying to different people are steering the narrative, and we're trying to instill a sense of fear and all of these things. And I fully believe that that is a control system, that again, we're trying to take power away from people, and it is something that we need to watch out for and make sure that we are turning to people like Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich and Gordon Lohr for an education about history, because history repeats itself. Sometimes you've got different names, but there are the same types of agendas at play, the same types of groups that are doing things not only here but all over the world. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm here with Barry Greenwood, Jan Aldrich, and Gordon Lohr. And gentlemen, thank you for being here, and thank you for also teaching me so much about this and the history of the subject. I want to talk a little bit about the manipulation that you have seen as you have been delving through. I mean, Barry, you wrote Clear Intent, which was about the government cover-up with regards to this subject. I would like to ask you, Barry, first, what do you think, what has happened with the history, and is there an attempt to suppress it?
Yes, I mean, that's essentially what Clear Intent was all about, that there was a long history of government paperwork and actions being suppressed through the years. The Air Force controlled the narrative until 1969 when they announced they were giving it up, but it became apparent that there was still much to be found behind closed doors, and we used the Freedom of Information Act, which had undergone a revision in 1974 to extract some of these secrets and covered up information, and that.
Yeah, it's very good. Could I ask you a question about what's on the front cover of your book? What does the government know about UFOs, and why won't it tell us?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if they still even know how to address that issue.
I agree with you there.
It's become apparent with the recent publicity on To the Stars and Tom DeLonge and his organization that there's still considerable interest within government circles concerning UFOs, and remarkably, one of the most closed-mouthed organizations, the Navy, has been rather candid about admitting to participating in UFO investigations.
Right, exactly.
And so what do you attribute that to?
Well, apparently there's a stimulus there that's causing them to keep their eyes open about it. We've seen videos released involving Navy pilots, and we don't have complete information on all that yet, but some of the pilots...
I just saw that on CNN yesterday. The thing is, they give it such short thrift, though. They mention it in about 5 seconds and then go on to something else,
Well, yeah, I mean, the media is at the end of the line for dispensing information. They give it out however they feel like and in whatever quantity. We, behind the scenes, we have to deal with more information, but, sometimes it's frustrating that even with this story, we don't have a complete accounting of what they're dealing with. We're still trying to find out what a 490-page history book mentioned by Louis Elizondo is all about. What's the title? Where is it?
Yeah.
And so I want to ask all of you, you've looked at the history of the subject. Were there people that were involved in this back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s that inserted themselves into this that were potentially foreign actors? That were trying to get information and trying to move that information to their governments?
Well, I think Gordon can speak to that with the CIA attention to NICAP files at one time.
Yeah, I guess but what you mean by foreign actors are just people coming in there trying to discredit the subject, right?
Well, right, and there obviously is a need for the intelligence community to monitor the situation, and that is a really interesting story. But Gordon, did you ever have any suspicion that there was anybody involved in this that might be that doesn't have our own country's best interests at heart?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, it's covered in my book, Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, but back about the end of 1967, a cocky young man came into joined our staff. His name is Stuart Nixon, and no relation to the president, I don't think. But he came in, and the first week he was there, he came up to me. He said, "Well, Gordon, I'm here to help you guys through the rough times." And I said, "What do you mean, Stuart?" He says, "Oh, well, I can't tell you anything else right now, but I'm just here. So anything you want to tell me, and I like to know quite a bit, I'm right here for you." Well, right away, I suspected a CIA plant. And I asked asked Major Kehoe about it, and I said, "Do you think he's a CIA plant?" He says, "No, he doesn't have the brains for it." I said, "Well, don't you think that a CIA plant could pretend otherwise in order to elicit information?" But I think the thing was that you see, Kehoe himself, bless him, he's the man that started it all, and I always consider him a friend long after he died, I think around 1977 or 75. But his best friend at the U.S. Naval Academy was Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter. They even graduated from there together in 1920, and Hillenkoetter later became the first director of the CIA. Therefore, and Kehoe appointed Hillenkoetter as the chairman of the NICAP Board of Governors back in the late 50s. And then finally Colonel Joseph Bryan came in. He's a CIA guy. Dewey Fournay, whom I was in a lot of contact with trying to save NICAP, was a CIA guy. So the CIA was in on NICAP, which then was the world's largest and most respected UFO organization. So it should be no surprise to people to realize that this was the CIA kept it going as long as they perhaps felt they should, then transferred it to Jack Acuff and company, who sort of rammed the organization into the hole during the latter part, during the first decade of the 1970s, or the decade of the 1970s. But it was very disconcerting because the last few months there, actually the last year, we were trying desperately to save NICAP, and we weren't able to do it before it was taken over. But then I was unceremoniously fired on the same day that Kehoe was. I think it was December 8th, 1969.
And in your files, there is a letter that Richard Hall wrote on your behalf, talking about your firing from NICAP and raising some very important questions about why that happened.
Exactly. And that's there in toto in my book, Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth. But Dick Hall was a very close friend, and he really did a remarkable job in trying to maintain a balance between Kehoe and myself, and also people like Dewey Fournay, who was a strong supporter of NICAP first, but Fournay himself was a CIA agent. So they really infiltrated the organization and took it over.
Well, and Jan, I know that we had some discussions about that, and your feelings were that wasn't necessarily the case. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Wow. I'd like to know the evidence that Dewey Fournay was a CIA agent. He was a reserve Air Force officer, as far as I know, but
well, maybe I misspoke. He may not have been a CIA agent. He was certainly up there with them. Matter of fact, he was on the board that fired Kehoe and myself, and he was in constant contact with CIA people, and Stuart Dixon himself was a CIA plant. I have no doubt about that, even though he may not have been in the CIA itself. But even a guy named McIntyre, the UFO photographer, had connections with the CIA. So he may not have been a CIA agent per se, but he was certainly working with them and trying to put NICAP, Kehoe, and myself out of business, and they succeeded, unfortunately.
Well, and we can't say...
I've seen some correspondence from Fournet, and he said that the board told him that he had to break the news to Kehoe that he was fired. And Fournet said, yeah, and he said, I don't want to do this, he's my friend. And they said, well, that's why you have to do it. So he was unhappy about that, and he was unhappy about afterwards he had to run the finances for a couple of months. When
that's right, and
he had his own job to do, and he was really unhappy about that.
Exactly. What
I was
told.
You know, Fournet helped Kehoe a lot during his career.
Yeah, he did. As a matter of fact, Fournet and Hillenkoetter both, not Hillenkoetter, the man who was the, I forget his name now.
Arngraff.
That's right.
The guy who was president of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association.
Exactly. It was him. In fact, he told me 2 days before we were fired that they were going to fire Kehoe and that they were going to try to keep me on board. But I later found out that in order to soften the blow for Kehoe in firing him, that they would also fire me. They were planning to keep me on, but they decided to fire me in order to soften the blow. The Kehoe. Now, how that would soften the blow to Kehoe, the man who co-founded the organization and loved it more. Matter of fact, he loved the organization so much that he actually had to take his daughters out of college so he could use the money to keep NICAP going. Now, that's a real dedication.
Absolutely. And I have to say, though, I mean, we know, I mean, there are documents that state that the government wanted to shut down this area of study and to discredit researchers and to, A, B, C, and D. So why is it such a far stretch that the powers that be would infiltrate different organizations and try to discredit the people involved and try to shut these organizations down or gather as much info as they could?
Well, know something. There's a situation I recall in the 80s, I think it was after Clear Intent was released, that I began to receive postcards from Russia from an individual who was asking for copies of information on UFOs. He would specify some of the items he was looking for, but then they were public articles. They were in magazines and newspapers. I would pass them along. There was nothing secretive about it and all, but later he began asking for larger quantities of information, and he had a strange request, I thought anyway. He began asking for books, and, that would incur considerable expense. So I said, well, it's kind of costly to do that, and I don't know what to do. He says, well, I have an idea. He says, get some greeting cards, Christmas cards, birthday cards, anything like that. Take a book, tear it into pieces of about 10 pages each, and send those sections in the greeting cards to him. His thinking was that the Russian authorities would confiscate any large amounts of information, but if they were torn up inside greeting cards, they wouldn't notice them. They'd think they're letters. And I said, well, I don't want to do that because they're books, and I don't like tearing books up. So he kind of drifted off and lost interest after that. My unwillingness to tear books to pieces just disappointed him, so I didn't hear anything again. I thought that was very strange.
And so have you had any, and Jan, this question is for both you and Barry, I mean, have you had other people from different countries like that reach out to you that you might find suspect or trying to get information from you?
Well, I thought the Russian was suspect. So.
That is very suspect, yeah. Jan, how about you?
Well, I've written to people in Russia, and before I went into the military, I had some correspondence with not with, I can't remember his name, the guy that had the big UFO organization in Russia. Frederick Ziegel. Felix. Yeah, Ziegel. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had some I think Ziegel was not the head, the guy that was the president. I wrote him, and so we corresponded for a while. And when I went into the Army, I put that down on my security information that I had contact with Russians, but nobody ever asked me about that. That's the only thing I can think of. The main thing from overseas is people that were, quite frankly, I think mentally ill, that, wanted to tell me their pet theories about UFOs. I've never had anything really like that.
And I think this whole thing is so interesting. And I want to ask both you and Barry about Armin Victorian, because that whole piece of history was quite unusual on the European scene. So, Jan, did you have an experience with Armin? We've got 4 minutes to break, but Jan, start us out, and then we'll go to Barry.
I have no experience with him. I have some of his letters that fallen into my hands, but no.
Yeah, I dealt with him quite a bit. It was rather striking because he lived in England, and at first he would send correspondence asking about government documents and other types of information like that. Again, this was around the time my book came out and later. And it then, after a while, it graduated to very long phone calls in the late evening when I got home from work, and he would rattle on for an hour or two, and I'm sitting there thinking, damn, how would I pay for these phone calls? This fellow seemed to be able to talk as long as he wanted to, and it wasn't just me, it was with other people too, but he was very, very interested in government documents and seeing original copies of things. And he also did his own research, and he would call people within the U.S. government out of the blue. He'd track down their numbers and grill them regarding their interest or involvement.
Very interesting, yeah.
He was known as the orchid thief.
Yeah. There were news stories about him smuggling orchids in England, which was a big crime, and
wow.
He was punished for it. But that just added to the mystique of who he was. An international smuggler interested in UFOs.
Yeah.
What else was he smuggling?
Well, it is interesting, though, when you look back historically, how there are these people that insert themselves into the narrative. I mean, foreign actors, quote unquote, who are trying to hit up everybody for information. And what is the agenda? Is that something that, as American citizens, U.S. citizens, we should be concerned about? I think we should, personally. I think this subject
I think the The only time I had some concern about that is I had a friend in Australia who we exchanged massive amounts of clippings. He had clipping service for Australia, New Zealand, and England, and I supplied him.
There's that music, and Jen, I've got to cut you off really quick. We're going to talk about that when I get back. Okay, I'm Erica Lukes. This is UFO Classified. I will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
13,000 years ago, the world started its descent into the Dark Ages. History, as we know it, is about to be rewritten in The Emissary, a thrilling new reincarnation fantasy adventure by Tamara Veach and Rennie DeFazio. Ancient mysteries, an epic love story, and the timeless struggle of good versus evil unfold in The Emissary. Available now on Amazon.com. Once you pick it up, you won't want to put it down.
Vegas, baby! Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix.
The Paradigm Matrix.
Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
1, 2, 3, 4!
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Love the music. Oh, I listen all day.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chat at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the final segment of UFO Classified. Once again, I want to thank everybody from all over the world for tuning into the show. I get more and more people messaging me and sending me sightings reports and things. It really means the world to me. I get people literally from all over the world who understand, hopefully, the importance of my research and want to support the show. You can go to UFOclassified.com to become a Patreon and really help instead of throwing money away to go to conferences where you're seeing the same old speakers and same old delusional thinking and things that does not progress make a progression in the field. You can donate and do something good and also help preserve history, because right now here in Utah, I have an incredible archive which is in a commercial facility. It is open to the public and it grows bigger by the day. I always take people in there, even if they're not there to talk about UFOs. I take them in there, and without a doubt, most of them have a story that they end up sharing with me. It's a really a beautiful thing for me, and it makes going through all the drama and the crap worthwhile. But I am here tonight with my friends and mentors, Gordon Lohr, who I'm currently writing a book with. He has several books out, including Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, a UFO Researcher's Odyssey. You can find that on Amazon. You can also, Jan Aldrich is another person who has done a great deal for decade after decade. You can go to Project 1947 to check out his work. And Barry Greenwood, You've Got to Get Clear Intent. That is the book, according to everybody I know. It doesn't matter who they are. If you know the subject, Clear Intent is the most important book that he co-authored with Larry Fawcett, and that will teach you a lot about government, the secrecy, and much more. But we've been talking about so many things, gentlemen. Thank you for being here, and I want to, because we've only got a limited amount of time left, I want to talk about what's taking place with archiving now. And for me, as somebody who's younger that's coming into this field, I've found it very difficult to find places where I can learn about the subject. And luckily for me, I've met all of you and I'm starting to get access to that. But what's happening with research and archiving in the United States? Barry, I'm going to ask you first.
Sure. Archiving is alive and well in the subject, and as I've mentioned before, it's very important to take the literature and both preserve and duplicate it so that access to the information will be much easier in the future. I remember when I was young, we had nothing like that. You'd have to go to the library to use books. The copy technology was poor then, and it was very unsatisfying. And I thought, why not create some sort of a UFO warehouse eventually for people to use and dip into? And little did I know that when scanning technology came along, you'd be able to read everything off of a TV screen. So I adapted to that and proceeded to try to locate everything there was on the subject for such processing. And it's ongoing now. We're gaining access to important collections. I'll be going out to Chicago in a few weeks to do more with Jan. Jan will be accompanying me, and that'll double the output of what we're able to do. So there's a lot to look forward to that way, and I've never seen so much information widely available now as in the past. It's quite promising.
I wanted to ask you something, Barry. How can we eventually get? I sort of think of what you guys are doing as trying to establish what. I eventually hope maybe some kind of minor or small Library of Congress for UFO researchers and investigators where they can actually go dig into all this material. But how would that even be possible with everything scattered all around the world? You'd have to bring all that stuff together.
Yeah,
now you have them farmed out to so many different places that it'll be hard to tell people where exactly they could go.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's virtually impossible to round up all the information that ever was in the subject. That's just a pipe dream. All we can do is gather in what we can have access to and put together, not just in one place, but in multiple locations. That's very important.
Right.
Usually there's only a limited number of copies, hard copy, of books and periodicals and all, and we'd like those to go to some sort of a deep storage warehousing where they could be used.
Absolutely.
But what's more important is to get all those scanned and make sure that the scans are available from multiple locations so that it doesn't get lost.
But where are the multiple locations? So Gordon, hang on one second.
I was going to say, tell us about how the APRO files were lost. I mean, that was a big loss.
Well, I want to talk, though, because we've got limited amount of time, and APRO is really important. But I think that we need to focus on who and how do you determine where, quote unquote, a safe place is to store information. And then for somebody like myself, when I'm coming into this and I don't have necessarily the access of the quote unquote UFO elite, the people that have been doing this, how would somebody go about getting information about this?
Well, we're in the very early stages of this now. That's a project that, as you well know, needs money, facilities, manpower, logistics, and we're trying to put this all together, but it's with virtually no budget. So that getting scanned materials available, you have to put them in places where people who have a long interest in the subject, who can be relied upon to take care of it over an extended period, will house these scans, and we try to make these locations available to people in general. Ideally, you'd like the news media to cover it, newspapers, TV, radio, and all, but that's just not practical. You can't expect them to deal with a topic like that. So within the field, we try to advertise places where they can obtain scans or even hard copy that hasn't been scanned yet. But yeah, you're right. It's not a widespread information yet.
No, it's not. In fact,
a lot of cooperation.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do. It's like who are the people though? Who are the safe houses for this information? So if somebody like myself wanted to go there and research, then I would know where to go.
Yeah. I mean, right now
we're not going to have physical places.
No, but I mean, like if I were to
it's going to be scans. That's the idea.
Yeah.
No more tons of paper and stuff like that. That's what I got 4 rooms and a winter kitchen and a storage facility full of stuff. I've been collecting this stuff for 50 years. It's got to be put into some place that you can just what we said before when in the 1990s we were talking about scanning stuff, and say you can carry all your material in your back pocket on a thumb drive.
There you go.
And that's what we're trying to do. So Keith Basterfield in Australia, he sent me a thumb drive full of case files from Australia. So I'm adding that to my material. In some cases, I have a few items that he didn't have to add to one or case file. Barry found a police report from all places, West Perth, Australia, and the Australians didn't have it. The police station didn't keep the record of it, so it went to NICAP, and Barry found it at CUFOS, and I had some documents, and putting that all together, we got almost a complete file on this case. And I have several people's stuff, files, Willie Smith, Andrew Roberts from England. I have my friend J.J. Kibble from Australia, who sent me a lot of material from down there when in the 60s. So we're trying to put this all together and make a round robin on this or something, so that it's got to be in more than one place. Things disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
Things get stolen. Paper is dangerous.
The paper is.
Yeah.
I love having those paper files, and I think that's important to have a place like that where people can go and see the paper files and look through history. But with the scans, with regards to the scans, it's like I look at what has happened with the Elaine Douglas files, and those were taken from me, and now they apparently are on a website that isn't here in the United States. And so, but who has access to this? Who decides whether somebody is worthy of having this information? And like I've said, to me as a younger researcher who is not in the it crowd, it's like I don't have that. I don't have access to that information. And what will happen if God forbid something happens to the keeper of the kingdom? Is that going to be lost forever?
There is no keeper. That's the whole idea, is to spread it around. The whole idea is to spread it around. I think paper copies should probably end up right now. It might not be the idea in 5 years from now, but right now, looks like the University of New Mexico is a good place for paper copy stuff.
Well,
a good repository for that.
Yeah, with universities, universities can store a certain amount, but they sure can't take everything on this subject. And but it's hard to convince universities to take information on UFOs because they consider it a frivolous topic.
Yeah,
but the University of New Mexico does not. So we've already talked about this. University of New Mexico is willing to take almost anything. So.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
So that would mean that we would have to.
Space is not a problem.
Well, unfortunately, that would mean that we would all have to go to the University of New Mexico to look at the files or to look at any of the stuff.
If we want to look at things now, we have to go to the archives. So, it's the same problem.
Ideally, you'd like to have regional centers where some sort of a library can be made available of hard copy. But, as I mentioned before, you're talking about facilities, manpower. You need money for that.
And so I want to ask each of you. Well, I want to ask you because there are people that are over in Europe who are donating a considerable amount of money to archiving and to collecting data. Why don't we have that here?
That's a good question. We've tried for years to push the idea of archiving and having facilities and all, and the bucks aren't there. People aren't willing to put into that. They would rather, I think, be entertained by flashy websites and conventions and all. The money from those could really help run a small archive in various areas, but we need to convince people to want to do that. and pour money into it. And it has to be consistent. It can't be just one shot.
Right.
Yeah, well, neither do we have people that are willing to work on this.
That's another issue too. Most people, they pay lip service to history, but do they really want to work with it day in and day out? And the answer is usually no.
For me, I do. But for me, I have questions if I'm going to work on this and go to such great lengths. Where at the end of the day, where is this information going to go? And how do we get it out to the public? And how do we change? Make sure that people like all of you are remembered and honored, and the work that you have done is that we're moving forward with that. And right now, I'm seeing a vacuum of information that is going into a dark hole that I don't have access to, and I want to know who is picking these safe houses. Where are they? How do I get information?
Jan is a safe house. I'm a safe house. Some of the folks who've worked on history information the last few years have safe houses as what we call a history team archive. It's not a public archive, unfortunately, because there are issues with copyright on literature and all. So, nevertheless, materials archived there too. Within the subject, you know that, but getting it circulated to the general public is not an easy thing, because you just don't see too many stories about archiving UFO literature.
Yeah, I know. It's 100 times more difficult these days with, the internet and all the outspread of other information as well. So, I was doing trying to do a ballpark figure about, because when my book Mysteries of the Skies was published, there were probably not 25 serious books on the subject. Now there are thousands, So so you're having kind of that kind of difficulty now with just an overwhelming amount of stuff.
The UFO topic is a niche topic. It
a niche
occupies
topic,
a small area, and there's a smaller number of people who pay attention to it.
But
I think in general, those people get the information they need to have to do research by knowing folks who do that kind of archiving and making scans available.
But aren't there some key people, though, in different places in the world that have a lot of money that are financially putting up money to do this?
Well, there's an organization in Sweden, AFU, and they seem to have the bucks to do it, and they're making some information publicly available, through the efforts of Anders Oljegren and Klaus Svahn and Isaac Coy and others who are pouring scanned information into that place. Not all of it can be available, again, because of various restrictions and copyright and all of that. You'd like to,
Speaking of Isaac Coy, though, I don't know. Any words about Isaac there, Erica?
Yeah, I do think, and I know that Barry and Jan, we've had this conversation before. I do think when somebody hides behind anonymity, that is a question that I don't understand why that would be the case if we were trying to get this information pushed forward. And I think if you were simply an archivist or an historian and you weren't interjecting your own personal bias onto the matter, that might be different, and that would maybe anonymity would be a good thing. But that's been something that, as both all of you know, has concerned me for a while. But both you, Barry and Jan, have had a lot of interactions, and are doing positive things. So.
Well, there is a large archive of periodical literature that's available, not just through AFU, but we have copies of similar information, and the more proliferates, the better.
When I was at the UFO history meeting, I sat down with a fellow who's interested in preserving material and has a little bit of funds available. And he started asking me things. He says, well, have you looked at lighthouse logs? And I said, oh, yes. I've just sent 10 people from the Institute of Ufology to the archives to look at all the lighthouse logs in the archives. And that was my answer to every one of the things he said. Well, why haven't you looked at this area or that area or this area? We don't have the people, the time, and the inclination to do that. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Oh, boy.
Well, I think that we can work together, though, and try to do that, because I think for me, keeping our history here in America is of utmost concern. And I know that there are other people that, I've received 5 different messages from people that saw me lecture at the Utah UFO Festival that want to know how they can help. And so it's just a matter of teaching people and instilling a sense of passion. And hopefully we can obtain as much funding as some of these other organizations overseas to make sure that our work is kept here for the sake of American researchers. And that's important.
Well,
with computers, it doesn't matter. It's wherever you are. The computers doesn't matter. It's not a patriotic thing. It's information. If it's scanned in, it's fungible. It goes everywhere.
So then, if I were to reach out to some of these people, then I could say, could you please give me information about research here, and I could get that.
What you need to tell them, actually 2 things. You tell them if they have anything unique on the subject themselves, scan it and get it into someone who can archive it. Or if they can't, if they don't have anything like that, they can contribute financially to places that are archiving, because there's a dire need for supplies to be able to keep those projects going. If they're looking for information, you can provide them with our names, for one, or steer them in the direction of several archives that are available online.
Yeah, the other thing is, you can help out without any money. Somebody go to the FBI site, take one of those cells, there's 16 cells on the FBI site, and index them. And if anybody wants to know how to do that, I'll show them. And that would be extremely helpful. We'd have all the people are constantly asking me about what's on the FBI site or about documents that they think we should FOIA. And I said, you don't need the FOIA. It's already on the FBI site. But it's not indexed. So it's very hard to find things there. You've got to, the best book is to read McAfee's book about the FBI and the CIA. But even so, there's important things in the FBI file that are not in the Air Force files or anybody else's files.
I was going to ask you too, Jen. How about the Black Vault website?
Of course, yeah. He's got extensive documents that he's put up, and I put up a lot of documents. I try to keep it.
And I hear that music, and I've got to cut you off right there because it's the end of our show. But thank you, Jen Aldrich, project1947.com. Please go there and look and learn. And Barry Greenwood Archives, Gordon Lohr, my friend who I promote all the time, who has written a lot of important books. I'll post links. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Again, this show was one for the memory books. Have a great night. Stick around for Willie Miranda.
Well, thank you, lovely lady.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.